There I was. I was ready to go. I had prayed all week long for this service, and as I was praying, there was a specific student that God had placed in my mind, in my heart. This was years and years ago. As I was preparing for a message, I knew there was a specific student that needed to hear this message. And I walked in confidently, knowing that God was going to do a transformative work in their life. Worship gets done, and I step up on the stage and look out, only to find that this student was not there. Of course, I preached the message, and God did amazing things. And I went afterwards and asked why the student wasn't there. And what I was told was that they didn't feel like coming. They wanted to just hang out with their dad. Now, I understand if this was something that they didn't get to do often, but this student got to hang out with their dad often. And the real reason they weren't there is that they just did not want to come to church. Now, in our American mindset, we would look at this and say, man, God, or this student missed what God wanted to do in their life. And that is very true. God wanted to do a transformative work in their life that day, and they missed out on it. But could it be that there is something deeper at play here? See, we have been talking about how we are purpose driven. We talked about our purpose as a believer and our purpose in the family. But today, I want to talk about our purpose in the church. The American mindset takes that situation and says that individual missed out on what God wanted to do in their life. But when we understand our purpose in the church, we understand that it's actually much deeper than that. Not only did they miss out on what God wanted to do in their life, but they robbed me of the opportunity to be used by God and to function in my purpose in the church. See, so many times in the American culture, we think that church is about coming and being a part and us getting fed and us getting served. And we see so many different people leaving the church and switching churches and all this different stuff. And it all comes back to one reason. They felt like they weren't getting fed. They felt like things weren't happening in their life. But Isaiah chapter 6 gives us a really good example of how this is actually not the mindset we should have towards the church. As Isaiah goes into a vision of heaven, he sees these angels circling around the throne and they're worshiping God, but the way that they're worshiping God is very unique. Let's look at our family Devo scripture now together. Isaiah 6:3. And one called to another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. This is a beautiful picture of angels worshiping God, but the way that they're worshiping, we get a picture as they're calling out to one another of the holiness of God. They're not looking up at God saying, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of heaven's armies, but rather they're looking at each other, drawing the attention of one another to who is on the throne. Why is this? It's because God is limitless, but we are limited. And when we serve an all-powerful, limitless God, and we are limited, we have a limited perspective of who he is. This means on our own, we cannot see the full picture of who God is. But when we come together with our limited perspectives, we are able to open up as other people are able to fill the gaps of the aspects of God that we cannot see. And this is what the angels are doing. They're looking at one another saying, Holy, 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 because as they look at one another, they are able to see facets of God in the other that they are not able to see themselves. And this is such a beautiful picture of our purpose in the church. Our purpose in the church is not to be served, is not to be fed. As a matter of fact, you should not come to church as a believer with the mindset of how can I grow? How can I be fed? But rather, you should come to church as a believer, already prayed up, already where you need to be with God, so that you can pour out and help other people. If it's true that the church is a place for the lost and the broken to come to know Christ, and if we make it about ourselves, we have missed the entire purpose. But rather, we should use the giftings and the relationship that we have to draw the lost and the broken to a deeper place with Christ. Here's the point of this message today. Your purpose in the church is not to be served, but it is to serve. Because if I serve you and you serve me, everyone is getting served. But if I serve you and you come with the mindset of how can I be served, and I'm not being served, the body is not growing as a whole because we've pinpointed and focused on certain individuals. Our mindset and our heart set should be to go to church to ask the question, how can I serve? Let's talk about these things now in our family discussion question.